Yes, well, that's definitely a good question because the lifetime of the robot depends on how much you're using the robot. So certain labs are running them 24 hours, 7 days a week. Other labs are using them at a less pace, but still, after a certain time, they require some level of maintenance and repairs. I think what we're seeing is still we haven't reached that point of having too many robots out there because the demand that was before COVID was not as much as we are seeing right now. So probably we will be seeing something like this, a huge the amount of robots out there that will require some level of maintenance and repairs. But I see that companies like Precise Automation, they're handling very well their supplies, the parts that are going to be available, and also their model is allowing us to have, as OEMs of the robot, we have people trained to be able to take care of those robots and maintain them. So I see that a lot of our customers are able to reuse certain equipment and also their robots. And probably at that point will be another option of reselling those robots at a lower cost for labs that cannot afford like the brand new solution.
So what is maybe the average lifetime over this like a six degrees of freedom robot? Do you know? I'm just curious.
Well, for industrial robots, I really don't know. I imagine 20, 30 years, depending on the use. I really don't know the answer to that question.
Yes.
I see that for Precise collaborative robot, about 10, 15 years, probably they will reach the maximum time of being in the lab. And with some repairs required, yeah.
So what about sort of future-proofing from the software point of view? I mean, one of the most amazing stories in the tech world is Tesla, which gets upgrades over the air like every month, apparently, with like some new bells and whistles. So it almost feels like it's a new car every single month. Is upgrades from the software point of view to those robots a possibility? And like how future-proof are they like 5-10 years into the future?
Okay, so for the software in our experience, so we went from launching the Genera first version of the software when probably around in 1999, and now we are at version 6, which is a complete new version of our software, but still with all the features that we have learn that the customer will need. So it's mainly for us, it's having that interaction with the client and our partners and see what is that they need in the lab with the coming of new technologies as well. So there is a change as well on the software part on how we are going to integrate, how we're going to communicate. And there is still no standardization for the way that the communication works for the devices. So that's a huge thing in the market because every vendor can actually have their own communication protocol that is not standardized. So all the drivers change depending on the manufacturer. So that's something that we will hope that in the future something will try to standardize that part of the communication. And for the scheduler, I feel like there's so much that can change from now, even in the environment of moving to cloud-based solutions, to implement remote connections now that that's something that is required more than ever because not everybody's in the lab all the time.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely a thing that you can teach an old robot some new tricks.
Yes.
So as far as the robots are concerned and just automation in general, there is several things that, like for a scientist such as myself, I can think of. We have a black box, like a plate reader that does something. We have like a collaborative robot that or like just an arm that moves around. And moves the plates around. Or we have a robot that actually like travels around the laboratory and helps and works alongside the researcher. what is sort of the next generation of robots would look like? Is there such thing as something that most of the scientific audience just is not aware of?
Well, I feel like our industry is a little bit behind on what is out there still, because we are seeing a lot of labs that are still afraid, a little bit keeping themselves away from the actual robot because of the lack of exposure to this kind of robotics, or also they feel comfortable doing their manual work, so they don't want to translate to something else where they depend on the robots. But we're seeing more and more, because we are working with collaborative robots that are safe and easy to use, easy to teach, that more people are being able to bring that into the lab at a safe environment, because, like you say, they are working side by side with those systems. The automation in the lab is not a system that you set up and leave it there. It requires constant interaction, and the human is always going to be around servicing the devices, loading the samples to the system. So all of that is kind of a key part of the laboratory automation. So the more collaborative solutions that we bring, I think that will allow the researcher to be more comfortable with the integration with the automation, and then they will be able to implement more automated systems that are going to help them with their research and going to make their job a lot easier.
So would you say that it's definitely in our future that we're going to see a robot more or less moving around in a laboratory, in a scientific environment, like over the next few years? I
know that, for example, in the healthcare, in hospitals, they are already using those mobile robots to clean, to bring, even to assist with surgeries or other procedures, that the doctor is able to be remotely connected through a camera and a robot and do things in the surgery room. So those things exist in the different applications. Laboratory automation still probably is not there yet, but it could be an assistant that a lab can have that can allow to transfer samples or labware or things that take time for a lab technician or somebody, a scientist, to be moving things around.
How much of a lab adoption, a barrier to automation adoption is there from the technological point of view? Because all of that technology and robotics can be considered quite sophisticated for a researcher that just knows how to pipette and do their research and really neck deep into the biology of things. But how much of a barrier is there right now, and how much of a focus to fix that barrier is in the sort of robotics community?
So during the last year, I've seen such an increase of demand of automation engineers, application scientists, more and more people that will come to work with automated systems. That is incredible. When you go to LinkedIn and in my network, I see job postings for that all over. And that shows that companies are starting to build and implement automation, and they need this workforce to be able to support all the automation in the lab. And something that I always explain to people that don't know the industry very much is that, there is that scientist in the lab doing all manual work. And then the next step for automation will be a liquid handling automation. So there is plenty of options in the market that will perform that liquid handling automation part. And there can be numerous things to do with that liquid handling automation. So that in most of times I talk to people and I ask them, have you worked with automation? Do you have automation? And they immediately think of liquid handling. I see lack of supplies for labware tips, and all of the components that go into the liquid handling automation. And even liquid handlers are in back order as never seen before. So it's been huge. And we jump from that kind of automation focused on liquid handling and sample management to the next automation that we are the ones that are integrating all those components with the robotic arms. and making a seamless integration with the scheduling software. So there is different areas and expertise that are required in this field.
Do you think that because of such a rapid adoption over the last year, there's bound to be some kind of like a slowdown in the demand, or actually that's not going to happen anymore? It's just going to keep growing at a similar pace, basically?
I think there is definitely a little bit of a slowdown, and everything has been like a chain reaction because now COVID labs have priority over the other labs due to the pandemic. So we are seeing that other research labs that are doing different kinds of research, they're having issues getting their supplies as well to the lab on time. And we have a lot of customers saying, you know, we have placed orders and there's a lot of back orders that we cannot receive equipment in like the next 6-10 weeks. And I know that for all the companies trying to meet that demand requires a lot of changes in their processes. I know also the challenges for the manufacturers that are now with less capacity in the manufacturing plants, with delays on shipments as well, because everything now is being prioritized to vaccines. So many suppliers are shipping, you know, with longer lead times than ever before. So until that kind of stabilizes a little bit, until companies are able to increase their manufacturing capacity, until we get more people vaccinated so everybody can go back to the workforce, like you say, it will slow down a little bit until everything else can catch up.